Yes, good. Just bear with me while I click something out of the screen. In terms of mega infrastructure projects, obviously the world is moving on and change is a good thing in most cases. And what I would like to point out to you tonight is my views on what I see that has changed in what clients need from quantity surveyors and cost consultants on mega infrastructure projects. The characteristics, as I see, needed in a QS are an ability and a knowledge to avoid issues both in the pre and post-contract areas that can cause a project to become late or over budget. There are many clients that will start out with the question, why is my project always late and why is my project always running over budget? It's not going to change, but hopefully with the teams that are in operation throughout the projects and throughout the country and throughout the globe, that will improve. However, it's never going to go away. And so therefore clients have changed in their thinking slightly, in my opinion. They expect, certainly from a QS team, a service that is forward thinking. That is, they know how to look and solve issues before they arise. Now that's not always easy. A team, a QS team, will also proactively be involved up and downstream to help the rest of the project team's constituents work together better. They will have to be able to accurately, obviously, administer an entire project or program of projects across finance, contracts, project administration, and dispute resolution. Professionally, they have to be able to interact and manage stakeholders, consultants, and with contractors. They have to represent and liaise on the client's behalf throughout a project or program at different stages and for different output requirements. They also have to understand specialist works these days. And that, of course, leads to the need for specialist surveyors. An example of such would be, let's say, baggage handling surveyors, people who know intimately that service. They also know the technology involved. And it's also very applicable in my experience to things such as special systems. A project QS team these days also needs to be able to look and report at senior client level on the health condition of the project, be it again financial, contract, or general disputes. There also has to be an awareness of macroeconomic trends, both locally and globally. These kind of inputs the clients expect. They don't diminish what's expected of PMs and designers. They relatively remain critically important, as do we all in one team for a project. It's worth noting that the Chartered Management Institute in 2020 produced a report which discussed the problem of company failures, and in my opinion, and I've highlighted it here somewhat in red, also project failures. These are kind of things which cost consultants in particular, quantity surveyors, have to be aware of. They have to be constantly looking at the changing markets and those that are elements of greed which impact on companies, and indeed bad luck. Now I'll come to why these interests are important at this stage slightly later in the presentation. Companies will fail, and we as quantity surveyors and as cost consultants need to be aware of what kind of things will lead to those failures. And as I've said here, we only have to remember that we're still in, unfortunately, COVID, and all that that has brought through the world of commerce and construction. We also, they say, additionally, there is incompetence and bad management accounting for the failure of companies, and again, in my book, projects. And interestingly, that was some 56% of the reasons why companies fail. And I've also seen it in why projects fail, that there is mostly incompetence and bad management, and the other issues of changing markets and greed and bad luck are lesser. So it's not just my experience where I can see it, but it is in these kind of reports, albeit it's from research that was done in 2015. But in 2018, these kind of issues caused a fourfold increase in the failures amongst companies, which for a program of projects or for mega projects can be a disaster, and has been, not least the loss of time and in terms of cost to the clients. So if they can be avoided, they are not only important, but they will help the delivery. In terms of macroeconomics, there's also industry disruption, which needs to be looked at in the background. And again, I refer to COVID and what it has inflicted on the globe. Political uncertainty, the fragility of regional economies, and what seems to be looming ahead of us currently is discussions on interest rate fluctuations and what that might do to already overstretched companies working on our mega projects. So in all cases, leaders of organizations, of businesses, and of contracting companies should observe a need for business culture change and what impacts it'll have on their companies and on their working within those mega projects. So there has to be a solution which is deep-rooted in a management discipline and good practice delivery. A couple of nightmares, management service nightmares or characteristics which would help cost consultants look out for these kind of characteristics when you're, for example, interviewing contractors for select lists for the projects or for key elements of work. The kind of things that you need to be looking at, I'll go through a few in my opinion that are relevant. And again, this is from the Chartered Management Institute. Research that they have done, and I take my hat off to them. But monster behavior. Some may have recalled that a company called Carillion in the UK went bankrupt in 2018. And they were accused of many things, but they didn't have a coherent strategy, and they had a reckless pursuit of company growth. And more importantly, leaders who had stopped listening to the views that differed to their own. Now, these characteristics can sometimes appear in projects, and in my opinion, regularly do so, and they are worth watching out for. There is also then the kind of attitude which is called financial vampire. Power corrupts is a phrase that we all will have heard of. And there was a famous politician who's now called Lord Owen in a journal called Brain, actually identified 14 clinical defects associated with people who hold power. And they will exhibit such things as recklessness, contempt for others, a loose grip on reality, and a lack of empathy. Is there a cure? He suggested that humor and cynicism was a great help. I have to agree. But crucial in his view was self-control. These are again characteristics that you can look out for in your working professional life to help you understand what kind of organization you may be dealing with, be it a subcontractor, main contractor, client, designer, consultant of any kind. There's also then, this one really is very popular with me, ghost manager. People who say things such as, leave it with me. That is for me a danger, because it doesn't necessarily mean you know it's going to get done. And therefore you potentially, as a consultant, will be in trouble if you don't have things done. It's also, from a project management point of view, the worst thing, because project managers have to rely on people to get things done. Leave it with me, yes, by all means, but do make sure you follow up that it is being done. The March of the Zombies will probably speaks for itself, but that's more where markets are not acting rationally. There was a famous investor, which was referred to here, Charlie Munger, and in one of his books, he pointed out that too often people act in ways that lead to market madness, like zombies. And I have seen situations where projects or elements of the projects are marching in almost robotic manner to danger, to catastrophes of various kinds. And they do need to be watched out for in our professional lives. There's another one, which is the health and safety devil. Companies that exhibit a careless disregard for health and safety invariably are companies that are going to get into bigger trouble, and they will bring your project and indeed your clients into that same abyss. They should be steered clear away from. Health and safety devils being the title. Money spiders. In this one, it's not so much a use, but some companies will focus on cash, and they will avoid actually, they try and make themselves look rich, in other words, but they could end up being incapable of delivering your project or subcontract within your program. Then there is the eternal sleep brigade, and those are people who feel do not feel the need to that their contribution is valued and valuable if they themselves are to add value. I find this amongst my own team. I always try and make sure that the people who work for us as a team know that they're doing good and get to hear about it. Likewise, wherever there's success, do celebrate that success. It really does go to the core of a team delivery. So what does this kind of thing mean? I've got here an example of a before and after. On the left-hand side, the client used to have similar positions within the project management organizations, where they would have project controls and cost control within that element. And they would also have contract management, both of which are capable of being delivered by quantity surveyors as well. Now, in terms of mega projects, over the years, I've seen myself and my company working within those project management organizations quite successfully. But the clients have now evolved into what I show on the right-hand side, where they now seek, and have done certainly in the last 5 years, what's called executive quantity surveyors. That's where they have advice alongside and within their own client organization, delivering financial management, contract management, and all to pre and post contract duties. So basically you're acting as a client to make sure that the project doesn't run off the track or into an abyss, and you don't take on board organizations that might jeopardize your program, which means that when you are looking at organizations at the commencement of your project or program, you do select the right organizations to work for the project. So the skill sets of cost engineers, of quantity surveyors are needed and have evolved into this new demanding role, which seeks to tie together everyone within a program, upstream and downstream, and does so in order to benefit a project that comes in under budget and certainly on time. Two prerequisites that I mentioned earlier at the beginning. So what does a typical team structure look like? I've outlined in this current slide a very simple discussion. You would have obviously the lead alongside a good, strong deputy who is as good as the lead, because most of the projects these days, and I don't think there's any exceptions to this, a lot of demand on everyone these days, no matter what they do, obviously in cost and in time. But more interestingly, the quantity surveying service delivery these days is now looking to have specialists, which is what I've highlighted there in the second row. The mechanical leads, special systems leads, electrical contracts, and quality assurance. All of those people are working alongside the principal and deputy, and in conjunction with the senior project QSs who will be working on individual projects, again assisted by assistant quantity surveyors. And the nature of projects these days being what they are, there are disputes that arise, arguments, many claims, and it has come about that clients seek the presence of a strong claims team that would be almost present in any arbitration or dispute mediation, call it what you like, so that they are able to give the client a complete coverage of information and advice. And I emphasize the word advice. So in many respects, mega infrastructure projects are evolving and should also incorporate change. And a few of the points which I've given you here tonight, I hope would lead to a better understanding of those issues in order that we all can work better. So at that point, I would like to say thank you very much for giving me time tonight, and I will hand you back to Saad. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Richard. And I think we have some time for Q&A. So Ayub Said is asking a question. My question is about the QS scope of work. We understand it's a major in the construction site, but in the overall projects management should not be expanded to become in the same level or above the CE or the cost controller to avoid projects cost and schedule mismanage. Do you agree?
No, I disagree strongly. I think you have to understand that we're all pointing or trying to get one solution, which is the project delivered. Now, the project managers are responsible for the post-contract delivery of that project, be what it is. And the project controls within the PM, yes, they should work alongside what the executive QSs are doing on behalf of the client. On a practical level, let me give you an example on some of the projects that we work on. The project QSs will get information from the project managers in terms of what work has been achieved in a month, progress-wise. And those will be, in other words, verified records that the project quantity surveyor, or in this case, the executive QS, will then assemble the payment certificate and send that back to the project manager, so that ultimately the project manager makes his recommendation, which is a joint recommendation to the client for that amount of work. So on the contrary to what you say, it's a collaborative working together, which the client expects. He doesn't expect the executive quantity surveyor to be a divisive, I'm better than you. It's not meant to be communist in any way that we're all equal. It's meant to be that the team functions better. And I think that's probably the best thing to remember. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Richard. Another question from Abdul Wahid. He says, in your view, why is not any method of measurement beyond Cism and briefly BOMI used in the MENA region?
I think it's probably down to the designers. When there's a designer and a QS put together as a design team for a client, there's no reason why it has to be only POMI. But what does have to be considered is that post-contract, these prices have to be administered in terms of variations and monthly payments. And really what a Cism, if it was a civil engineering project, might suit, but mega projects, certainly in terms of airports or major infrastructure projects, rail and so on, there does need to be some detailed measurement. And I'm not talking about to the depth of what used to be called SMM5, but it certainly does have the details in standard methods, which are, let's say, computer software based. The POMI is quite detailed, very detailed, in fact, certainly more than Cism. And I would be very upset if I saw a Cism bill of quantities produced for an airport, which has happened in the past. And I would think there is a definite benefit for using the NRM, certainly over Cism for the likes of airport projects. And indeed on mega infrastructure projects, there is a case for Cism when it's mainly civil engineering, but certainly in the mega projects that I have been involved in over the many decades, there is going to be a need which is better met by NRM.
Thanks, Richard. So the one of the other questions, do you think there is any merits using NRM over Cism or vice versa in mega infrastructure projects?
I think NRM has more detail to it. It's certainly more current and has had better thinking to it. And it's usually a horse for courses again, which I made in the previous answer. I think Cism has certain occasions when it can be used on real projects, for example, if they're one-off and running and there's a great deal of repetition. But I do think NRM can be used even on those to much greater success because it gives better control of the post-contract stage for variations in payments.
Okay, so another question. How did the subcontractors deal with the consequences of COVID-19 time and cost-wise?
That is still evolving, and certainly I don't think I would have an answer to that. Subcontractors are getting various advice, which would be to submit something. And I think clients are getting other advice which contradicts that. I think it has to be based on common sense for what's going on in the project at the time. And I don't think it has been fully, I don't think the whole issue has fully evolved itself yet. And we can see that by the oncoming or the onslaught, perhaps better, of this next COVID variant. I do think it's all linked to force majeure, but I do think there should be common sense. And I also think that clients do apply common sense as they try and evaluate these claims that are being made.
Okay, we still have 3 minutes left, so we take one or two questions. How many percentage of variations that seems allowed to a project?
Sorry, how many percentage?
Percentage of variations that seems allowed to a project?
There's no percentage. It's not, I'm afraid life does not work that way, Mohammed. I wish that it did, but you will find that the amount of variations you get depends on the accuracy of the design that was done for a project. So if you have a project that was badly designed, then invariably you will get a higher number of variations. This is one of the issues that clients most dislike. That perhaps might be needed to be looked at in more depth by both the client when they are considering what procurement strategy they're going to take.
Thank you so much, Richard. We have so many questions, but I think we will not be able to exceed the time allowed to us. So we will pass the mic now to our colleagues in the United Arab Emirates, and we will welcome Gang Kaur and Sari Badawi. So please, the mic is yours, and we will be listening in the background. Thank you so much, Richard, for this wonderful presentation. Thank you guys for attending the Richard presentation.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Qatar section. This is Gagan Preet. I am from UAE chapter. I am the Vice President of UAE chapter. Unfortunately, our President, Mr. Suhas, is traveling abroad, so he cannot be a part of our webinar today. We are very fortunate to get an opportunity to be a part of four sections of ACI. The last 1 year has been, around more than 1 year, has been very challenging for our chapter because of COVID. Because in the past, we used to try to do face-to-face meetings either in the evening or one Saturday in a month, which would give us enough interaction with the members. But in the last 2 years, what we have focused on as a team is more number of webinars. And we are very fortunate that we got an opportunity to collaborate with other sections in the region and have a joint session. So now we have a very enthusiastic speaker from our chapter, Mr. Sari. He is with us for the last 2 years, 2 sessions. He is a marketing and member, and he's very enthusiastic in getting us new members. So now, before I go into more details about him, I would let you know that he is one who preaches what he talks. Because if you will see his certifications, he is certified of different certificates, not only from AACI, but other prestigious institutes also. He's PMISP, PMP, PSP, and also PMI RMP. He has a big knowledge in claims, and he has experience in not only one industry, he has experience in various industries, in hospitality, in construction, and he would talk more about us when he would do an introduction. He would share with you his experience. He is a claims specialist and a delay analysis expert, and he has an experience of over 16 years. And as I already mentioned, that he has worked in many sectors, including residential, hotel, commercial, airport, and also social infrastructure projects. He has experience in power plants also. Now he has been in UAE and has been practicing and working as a managing partner and one of the agile project management company. And he has been training and consulting a lot of companies. He has experience in UAE court proceedings for construction disputes. And I'm sure today evening you're going to have a good session. And we are very thankful once again to the whole team who has organized this webinar and made us a part of it. I'm very sorry, for some reason my camera is not working, but I hope that I would be able to put it on after this session. So let's welcome Mr. Sari, and thank you so much to the team.
Thank you, Gagan, and thank you for all the attendees for this first online conference for Region 7 in 2021. Maybe this will be the last in 2021, but definitely we'll keen to see you in another conference in 2022. Good evening or good afternoon for everyone who is attending. It's my honor to have you attending this quick session we will handle today with the Region 7. Actually, it was a little difficult for me to choose a subject to speak about it, because most of my colleagues from the other sections, they choose, let's say, maybe the more hot topics about the delay analysis and other things, and the QS as well. Actually, I choose to share with you some of the issues we are suffering on daily basis, or we are handling on our daily work with different companies, construction contractors, and employers. I believe, and this is a personal belief from my practicing in the industry over the last 16 years, that the construction industry is really suffering nowadays, suffering from multiple factors, from approaches of the stakeholders, employer, contractor, consultants, and from the current market conditions, from the global crisis, which is hitting the world every few years now, and just maybe the construction, one of the main industries being impacted and being affected in this industry. So I have chosen to discuss with you and to share with you our findings about the financial issues and financial impact due to the unbalanced contract conditions which we are suffering, which we are seeing on daily basis in the construction industry nowadays. So I prefer to start with one of the questions I'd like you to participate in and to poll. I'm going to share it now. I need to know who is the majority attending our webinar today. So I have shared you the questions. What is your work field exactly? Are you working with a contractor, subcontractor, consultant, or the employer? It seems consultant and BMC are leading. That's great. Okay, I'll end the poll now. And I will share, we have around 70% participated. Now I have shared with you. Is it clear now? It's now maybe 47% is working as a consultant BMC. So we have the majority of the attendees working in what should be the controller, the balanced parts, the impartial stakeholder in that industry, which is very good. There now, I will going to issue another poll and another question. I'd like you to participate in answering it to see, since now we have the majority working in the consultant or BMC section. So based on your answer, how do you see the balanced contract condition are working, and for which side? Great. Perfect. I'm going to share the result with you. 67% are choosing the protecting both parties, employer and contractor. It's an amazing answer. However, I still believe that it's a little theoretical answer, because what we are practicing on daily basis is not reflecting this answer, which we'll see now. I'm going now to start the presentation to share with you those points. This is the first poll. We have get the answer that most of the team are working in the consultant side, and this is the second poll. The construction contract definitions, according to the Wikipedia even, the construction contract is a mutual or legal binding. So the mutual here is taking the lead, is a mutual or legal binding agreement between two parties based on the policies and conditions recorded in the document form. And the two parties involved are one or more property owners or more contractors, the owner often referred to as the employer or the client, and has a full authority to decide what type of contract should be used for a specific development and to be constructed, and to set out the legally binding terms and conditions in a contractual agreement. And a construction contract is an important document as it outlines the scope of work, risks, and other points. So the base point, or let's say the skeleton of the contract, that it should be mutually between the both parties entering into the contract, and it should be legally binding for them. The common type of contracts which we have is a lump sum or fixed price, the remeasure contract, and the cost plus. These are types, not all the contract types, of course, but I have chosen the more popular ones used in the region. Regardless who is taking the main risk according to the contract type, for example, the lump sum or the fixed price contract, most probably the contractor is taking the risk. The remeasure, maybe they are sharing the risk, the contractor and the employer, and the cost plus, the employer may be taking the big chunk of the risk. The balanced contract, which should be reflecting the mutual agreement, the balanced contract between two parties should have equal stakes and liabilities for both through all stages of execution of the contract. This is what should the balanced contract represent. And the unbalanced contract providing a greater options to one party and restricting options of the other party. And this one may be set aside in the court of law if we reach it to no agreement points and we have need to proceed in a settlement or in a dispute. So most of if I will go to the disputes, the court will not accept the biased contract or the unbalanced contract. This is the next questions I'd like from the polls. I'd like to share it with you as well. Are you working on a balanced contract conditions? Wow. Results are very interesting. I'm just waiting for more results to come up. Maybe the result will change. Okay. So I'm going to share it with you now, right now. 63% participated and they are choosing that they are not working in a balanced contract conditions. Unfortunately, the unbalanced contract conditions are becoming nowadays to be a theme of the industry. Each party, they believes that the unbalanced contract, or they are trying to put the contract and depend on the simple fact they approved. No, they did not approve, but they have been forced to continue the business, to work with such types. And this will not end in a good results in any party, as we are going to see. This is the employer. The employer main motivates to use the unbalanced contract conditions. Any employer, they are setting that if I do not push the contractor to the extreme, you will not control the project. The contractor will start to play. The contractor will start to delay. So I need to put all the types of conditions. I have to put to control the contractor and always threatening him that I will punish and I will apply the LDs and so on. Some other clients and the employer, they believe that the unbalanced contract conditions could control the project's budget, which never happened. And always the project budget is not as estimated in the, let's say, the feasibility study stage. Some other motivates for other employers, either they are protecting themselves or they believe that they are protecting themselves, either on the personal level as an employee with the employer entity, and or sometimes on the business level that we are protecting our company rights. And this is one of the famous statements: we are protecting our rights, we are protecting our rights. Protecting your rights came from protecting other rights, because when others will be protected, when the others will work in a healthy environment, definitely they will keen to finish the project on time, to give the project the proper quality and trying to control the cost. No one is looking to delay himself. No one is looking to just push the project to the failure stage. But the unbalanced contract condition is doing so. When, on the other hand, the contractor, when he is doing or signed on the unbalanced contract condition with the employer, definitely is reflecting the subcontractor, because it's a subcontractor. I must practice my power. I'm a main contractor. So I need to push and squeeze the subcontractor to the maximum. And I must transferring the risk, of course. Therefore, we are using the general statements back-to-back basis, trying to protect ourselves by transferring the risk from the employer side to the subcontractor side, regardless what is the type of the work the subcontractor is doing and what is the nature of that work. And most probably this is being ended up either by a court in the litigation stage or in the arbitration if we did not use it wisely. We are not saying that protecting yourself or protecting the interest of your company is incorrect, but this kind of weapon must be used wisely and must be used on a fair basis so the balance could be restored in the industry. Here, what the contractor is trying to do, the contractor is responsible for all design elements. This is type of the items or type of the clauses which we are facing on daily basis now from the in the contracts, which the clients are trying to protect themselves. The contractor is responsible for all design elements, aspects, mistakes, and shall rectify it with any extra charge. The client is trying to protect the mistakes done in the design stage, either from his side or from the engineer side, and this is on the account of the contractor. And he is expecting that the contractor is fully responsible. Why he is not fully responsible? The contractor will not be fully responsible because some of the mistakes could be out of his control, could be out of his experience, could be out of his review. Because to believe the theory that the contractor is a Superman, or the contractor to believe that the supercontractor is a Superman and he could identify all the mistakes, he could do everything because he is taking money. You are doing your project for money as well, either from the employer side I'm talking or from the contractor and subcontractor side. The total float is owned by the client. Client is trying to protect himself, to control all the float in the project, to prevent the contractor from gaining any flexibility in rescheduling the activities of the project in case of there is any kind of delay happen, which is live fact. The contractor is not entitled for a prolongation cost, even if EOT being awarded. Most of the clients, they are trying to implement or to add these statements or to add this clause to the contract, trying to protect their budget or their project budget, believing that when I'm preventing the EOT, so the prolongation cost, so maybe the contractor will try more to finish on time. No escalation in the contract prices, regardless how long the contract is, how long the contract will take, how many years. We are just putting it to protect ourselves regardless. And maybe during the pandemic crisis, which we suffered 1.5 years ago, we all found that how these kind of statements or how these clauses to the reasonable and proper right of the contractor could affect the work and could affect the project. Contractors' prices are fixed during the project execution with no limitations. No limitation how the contract prices will be fixed. No limitations if the contractor could estimate or not. If the contractor could evaluate it during the tender stage or not. What is the percentage of regular price escalation the contractor could consider? My project is 2 years and we are expecting escalation for 10%. If the contractor did so, how we are coming, I'm talking either from employer or contractor, and asking the, let's say, the second party to be responsible for his prices for 3, 4, 5 years during pandemics or out on the regular conditions. How reasonably any party could evaluate or could estimate the price? Now you are jogging the second party, maybe in the profit, maybe in the direct cost, maybe you are pushing him for a losing side as well. The contractor is responsible for any authority delay, and this is we are suffering it again on daily basis. The contractor is responsible for any authority delay. How the contractor will be responsible? You could put it in a way that if the delay coming from the contractor side, for example, if the contractor failed to submit a proper submission to the authority, then the contractor will be responsible. But if I'm dealing with an authority which is regularly taking 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden the authority take 1.5 months, I'm following up, I'm going up. Why are loading this to the contractor? All these kind of unbalanced conditions have a severe impact on the project price, on the project budget, on the delays of the project, and on the industry at the end. Payments will be certified based on a milestones completion, not a progress payment. Some of the clients now are trying to push such clauses that they are specifying a certain milestones, and they are trying to say that this is protecting ourselves. So we are always making sure that the contractor is doing a lot of works before we are paying for him. Any variations, the contractor will work with no agreement on the value at all. So the contractor is responsible to do the work, complete the work, and then he will come and he will bring the client. The client here could be employer or main contractor for the evaluation of the price. The client has the right to withdraw any part of the work at any time without any consequences to the client, of course. So they are trying always to keep themselves on the safe side that they will withdraw any item. Maybe he believes that he could save some money on this item and he will give it to somebody else to do it. And what will be the result? What will be the financial impact on the project, which the client believes that they are protecting themselves? The contractor definitely will exaggerate the cost estimate, because when I will put more conditions on the contract, the contractor will start to consider all these financial issues, all these costs on the project estimate. The cost estimate. The contractor in most cases will add the delay penalties to the top of the project estimates. And we have these cases repeated several times in the projects, that the contractor considering that, no problem, okay, I will consider the 10%. This is the only way to deal with such type of contract. The project will not finish on time. How the project will finish on time, and the client or each side is trying to be biased and trying to follow only his interest. Contractor will not be able to hire highly paid staff, and this will definitely reflect on the quality of the work, the quality of the submission, the quality of the project following up. Contractor's cash flow will be disrupted, and this will lead for a further delays. So at the end, none of the parties could achieve his main targets by using unbalanced contract conditions. The project will not finish on time, most of the cases, which we are suffering on daily basis in our life. The project will not be finished on time. The project will not be finished on cost. And this will lead for a further delays, further disputes. Disputes now are on a very simple subjects, which the both parties could agree on, but each one is biased and each one is trying to always protect his interest. On the other hand, the client will not receive the project in time. The project's budget will not be controlled. Client's project will end up in a dispute. Most of the cases, client will afford additional costs due to the price exaggeration may not be paid in the balanced conditions, because when the contractor will evaluate or will do the price estimate and will add all these costs, for example, the prolongation cost, the client assumes that the project is in delay, good. But how you evaluate it on you take the decision that the contractor will be entitled for a prolongation. Maybe the contractor will be on a concurrent case, so he will not be entitled for a prolongation. But when you put such condition in the contract, the contractor will consider it and he will escalate the price. So you already afforded in the original budget, in the original price of the project. You did not save it. You did not protect yourself. You afforded it already, and now the client will take it regardless. He is in delay, he is entitled or not entitled. As an advice for all the second party, either the main contractor in case of the employer or the subcontractor in case of main contractor, you need to study the documents very, very well. Studying the documents, read each part, read each article, understand, make a proper link between the articles to understand how each one will affect the other. You have to form an experienced team in the tender and construction stage to follow up all these issues which we are suffering now. Estimate the risk properly. It's not a matter of I will do that in a 5%, in a 6%. It's not a matter, it's not that simple. You need to calculate it, you need to put effort to calculate it to protect yourself in the future and maintain a proper record for the projects to be prepared for the battle, because the battle is coming most probably. My last questions, I'd like to hear your answer about it. I'm going to launch it now. Have you worked in a successful project completed on time, on budget, meeting the quality, using unbalanced contract conditions? going to share the results. I believe the result is reflecting almost what we are saying. 74% saying no, and 26% is saying yes. So most of the cases, the majority is not as very, the variance is not the simple variance. The majority is saying no. And this is what we are trying to transfer to everyone, that always working on a balanced contract condition. This will protect you much more than working on unbalanced contract condition. So always use the balanced contract conditions to really protect your interest. You are more than welcome to raise any questions. I have finished the presentation, and you are most welcome to raise any questions in the Q&A panel, and let's see how we could help and answer it.
Thank you.
there?
Yeah, Mr. Sari, thank you so much. So we'll just give 1 or 2 minutes for people to put more questions. So we are around 10 minutes for answering having the Q&A session. Okay, so let's start with Mr. Rana. He's asking that if the contract is unbalanced or tilted towards a party, either the client or the contractor, and when we say unbalanced, I think we talk morely about the client, it gives a raise to the risks. How to account these risks and how to incorporate them into costing while preparing for a bid submission?
It needs to be studied in item by item. For example, when the contractor will see that the condition that there is no prolongation cost, for example, will be awarded even if the AUT being awarded, then I have to study the duration very well. I need to understand if the duration, if I really could finish the project on that time, or I'm now expecting that this project will not be finished on time. And if the project, I'm assured that this project will not finish on time, then I have to consider that in my cost estimate. This is the only way to protect myself. This is a really protection, to protect my company, to protect myself. So there is no a standard way to deal with this type of conditions. It needs to be studied item by item. For example, the design. When the client will put the condition that the design, you are responsible for full design, you need to review the design. Maybe you need to hire someone to read the design with the affordable cost you could afford it during the tender stage, of course, because I know that it's not easy for any contractor just working to price the project, and he want to hire hundreds of staff working for the project, which he don't know if he will get it or not. But no other way, because changing of the contract conditions are not allowed. No clients will accept, at least in our region, will accept you to change any condition, any contract condition. This is a very rare case, unless you are doing a very specific and high-tech work, and clients has no other option rather than hiring you. Maybe he will accept for some negotiation about the contract condition. Other than that, you need to protect yourself. You need to read it very well. You need to coordinate between design and between the other condition and specification to be more sure that you will not be in an issue.
Yeah, thank you, Sari. So in continuation to that, we have another question from an anonymous attendee. He says, in current market, do you agree that contractors are not able to price adverse contract conditions due to shortage of projects and market conditions?
Yeah. Here in this case, the decision must be taken now by the second party, the main contractor or the subcontractor. You need to do the work or you don't need to do the work. If you have the luxury not to do the work, very simple, run away if you have the luxury. If you don't have a luxury, then you need to make an effort. You need to invest in this part so you could protect yourself. You need to invest in reading the contract. You need to make a proper estimate. You need to review all the conditions. You need to do a site visit. This is the only way if you really like to do the business, because if we will wait and just complaining about the employers or about the main contractor and waiting for a kind of miracle come and enforce them to use balanced contract condition, this will never happen. This is in the utopia, not in our real world. So you have no other option rather than making more effort for that and trying your best to avoid or to mitigate the impact of these unbalanced conditions on your project.
Okay, thank you, Sari. We have another question. I think we have time to take maybe 2 questions more quickly. Karthik wants to know, how do we define unbalanced contract when the parties agreed to set a risk sharing at the time of entering into a contract? Means if both the parties are agreeing, so how you define an unbalanced contract?
Unbalanced contract, look, we could say that they agreed. Okay, they agreed. We have no objection on that. They have agreed. But have they agreed with a free will to agree on it? Or have they agreed because they are just looking to do the work and take the advance payment and then trying to find another project, take the advance payment to put it in this project and then ended up with 2 projects in the dispute? I know very well that, yes, they have agreed, they have signed the agreement. Why you are taking it as a bad thing, or why you are trying to make it as an issue? What we are facing every day is making this fact, regardless any theories could be written in a documentations, in a law, in a contract, or anything else. The facts which we are facing on daily basis, that contractors assign the contract because they need to do a work. Sometimes the decision is being made by an employee, and this employee is just looking to have this project so he could continue to work for a few months. So not each decision is a purely studied decision between the parts, or from the contractor side or from the subcontractor side.
Thank you so much, Sari. I think we are done with our time, and we have other speaker waiting for us. Thank you so much, everybody from Qatar section and the team organizing it, and Mr. Sari for your wonderful presentation. It was very knowledgeable for all of us, and we have got very good comments from the team, from the attendees as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gagan. And everyone is welcome to contact me anytime through LinkedIn, so we could exchange our experiences and we could answer any kind of questions for any of the attendees. It would be my pleasure. Thank you, Gagan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sari. Yeah.
Thank you, Gang and Sari. Actually, this is a collective work between the 4 sections. It's not only Qatar. Just interfered to hand over to Jordan team. So if I'm not mistaken, this is their time. Then we will be followed by Egypt team.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. I'm just going to ask Ibrahim, if you're ready, please open your camera. Great.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the session, everyone. Ibrahim, if you can please start
Yes, sure.
the slides. My name is Ali Saeed. I'm a section director from the Jordan AACE section. It's really wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you for the Qatar section and to all the other sections for organizing such an event. And we're humbled to be among you. Ibrahim, if you can move to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So basically, as an introduction about the AACE Jordan section, it's a relatively new section. It was started by the now regional director from AACEI, Ms. Haya Saleh. That was back in 2017. Right now, we are in 2020. A new board was introduced, head by Dunar Ramahi from Quantum Global Solutions. The vice president is Zohair al-Sheikh. Aace Shakhtour is in treasury, also from Quantum, and myself, the section director. I'm a forensic planning consultant from Quantum Global Solutions, which is a dispute resolution and construction support company. We work in supporting employers and contractors within their disputes. In 2021, we are growing slowly. There is a lot of effort done behind the scenes from the section directors and the board members, following the great work that was done by Haya in the past. Today, I'm very, very happy to welcome Ibrahim Ayub. He's one of the most initiative and active members we have at AACEI Jordan. I don't want to introduce him much. He's a senior planning engineer at Dar al Handasa. He's done his thesis about concurrency in construction. And Ibrahim, I'd like you to introduce yourself better. I think it's better if someone introduces themselves. So go ahead. After this session, we're gonna try to make it fast. Thank you for hanging out at the end. We're gonna have some question and answers. Feel free to click at the Q&A section in your toolbar. Ask any question at any time, and we'll definitely have some time to take questions at the very end. Hopefully this will be helpful. Ibrahim, please take it away.
Sure. Well, hello everyone. I'm really honored to being part of this conference. And I would like to thank Jordan Section for allowing me to be a presenter for this conference. My name is Ibrahim Ayub. I'm a planning engineer, senior planning engineer working for Dar al Handasa. Today, I'm going to talk about concurrency in the construction industry. Actually, this presentation is part of my thesis in the construction law. I did it in construction law, and I would like to share my findings and my experience related to this topic. So, so the word concurrent delay, it consists of two words. It's a delay, concurrent, and delay. So first of all, just to define delay, delay is a state of extended duration of an activity, or a state of an activity not having started or finished on time relative to its predecessor. Now, for a delay to be critical, the flow should be absorbed, and mitigation measures should be exhausted. So therefore, delays are either attributed to employer, contractor, or a neutral, which is no one's default. So it's either going to be excusable, compensable, uncompensable, or excusable, non-compensable, or non-compensable, non-excusable. So compensable, excusable, and uncompensable, it all relates to either time entitlement or cost entitlement. Now, so concurrency is a controversial issue since it has different views. And while analyzing the entitlement for extension of time, and it's based on each situation, the situation and the different conditions of that situation. So now let's define concurrency, or let's define the word concurrent. So concurrency, according to the AACE, it's two or more delays that take place or overlap during the same period, either of which occurring alone would have affected the ultimate completion date. Now, another definition for AACE is two or more independent causes of delay occurring during the same time period from which concurrency is measured, however, not always literally with the exact period of time. Now, these definitions, these definitions sets the prerequisites or conditions for saying that this delay is concurrent or not. So these prerequisites are related are as the follows. They are like unrelated independent and would have made a delay if the other delay did not occur. Assigned contractually to different parties, or one may be force majeure. Involuntary, which is not pacing, if could have been mitigated, but not, the delay is not voluntary. So this is the meaning of not pacing. Occurring during or impact the same time analysis period, each of which, absent the other, independently delay the critical path. Now, just to have an example, so suppose that we have a late installation of drywall, caused a critical delay to the project. This delay was occurred due to contractor failure to produce drywall subcontractor as planned, and severe shortage of drywall material in the region. These two events are unrelated. Okay, either one of them would have delayed the overall completion of the drywall. And in order to test that, let's say, but for the contractor's failure to procure the drywall subcontractor, works would still have been delayed, and shortage of material would have been delayed. Now, in examining the definition of concurrency and the cases happened for concurrency, there are three types of concurrency. First of all, there's lateral, which means happening in the same time. As you can see here from the figure, here, just let me take my mouse. This type of concurrency, there's an employer's delay, which is a delay in position of the site. And there's also contractor's delay, which is delay in mobilizing the resources. Now, each one of them happened at some point of the project, and these delays, these unrelated delays, delayed the start of the construction works. So this way, this is called lateral concurrency. However, for a functional concurrency, it means that the delay events are occurring with the same analysis period, and they have an impact on the project delay. This way of concurrency or this type of concurrency is more liberal than the lateral delay, lateral concurrent delay. Let's take looking at the figure. So this is the baseline schedule. It consists of 3 activities. The contractor made a delay for the second activity, and in the same delay period, the employer made also a delay for the third activity. Now, when doing the analysis for this time period, you can see that the completion is impacted by a certain amount of time. So this is what is meant by functional. So you can feel the impact of them at the same time here. Now, there's another type which is not common and rarely occurs. It is called the true concurrency, where there are the contractor's delay and the employer's delay are happening in the same time, starting the same time and completing in the same time. As I said, this is rare, and it is not common. Now, when analyzing for concurrency, the analyst should consider the following. First of all, whether we are using lateral concurrency or functional concurrency, and to look at the least value float or less than one float. So we discussed the lateral and functional concurrency. The least float or the less than one float, it depends on whether we are using the longest path, which is looking at the activities, the longest path, activities on the longest path, and the activities that have a flow that is less than 1. Based on, and the third thing to consider in the concurrency is based on the cause or effect of a delay. Now, and the fourth one is the analysis interval, frequency, duration, placement, order of delay, insertion or extraction in a step implementation, and analysis done using full handset or blind set, which refers to the knowledge at the time of the analysis. However, there's no agreement on the factors that's used to affect the identification of the quantification of the concurrency. However, it is accepted that a critical path analysis and critical path method concepts to be applied to determine the criticality or non-criticality of the delay. Now, looking at the legal definition and acceptance, lots of commentators and jurists considered both literal and functional concurrency. John Marine, QC, he's a judge. He agreed with the literal concurrency. He stated that a period of project overrun, which is caused by 2 or more effective causes of delay, which are of approximate equal causative potency. While he also agreed with the functional concurrency, which occur when the impact of both delay events is felt at the same time. There's also a very well-known Scottish case, CTN case, which is a game-changing case because it used apportionment, which we'll discuss later. Lord Drummond Young defined concurrency where there is true concurrency between a relevant event and contractor's default, in the sense that both existed simultaneously regardless of which started first. So here the judge also considered true concurrency. US courts, similar to adopted the Scottish definition in the Sun shipbuilding and dry dock. Now, in order to analyze concurrency, and its effect, there was many approaches by the courts. This is as the following. We have the time but no cost approach, which is called the Malmison Approach. This approach was initiated in Henry Boots v. Malmison Hotel. This approach is based on time but no cost. The contractor, at the point of concurrency, or where there's concurrency, the contractor shall be entitled for time, but they will not get any cost. This is on the basis of fairness. And it is considered the main judgment for English law. This approach here, as you can see from this figure, there's a contractor's delay here, and there's employer's delay. There's an intersection between them, which is the concurrency. Now, due to the delay, at the time where there's a delay to the contractor, there will be no time and no cost. However, at the concurrency, there will be time but no cost. And if it's due to the employer, there will be time and cost reimbursement. Now, there's another approach. It's called apportionment, where the decision maker the arbitrator or the judge or whoever doing this decision, would say that the employer is responsible for X days and the contractor is responsible for Y days. This is established in the CTN case, CTN versus Shepard case. The judge stated that if they put conditions, if they can be separated reasonably, fairly, and based on the amount the parties are culpable with, And again, when we say separated reasonably, it means unrelated and independent. And none of them is the dominant cause. None of them is the one is delaying the project. So they are both delaying the project. So the judge or the arbitrator or whomever is allowed to make apportionment based on his judgment. Now, this is also this was also agreed upon with in the US. This is also worked in the US. And George versus the United States, the judge stated when you have a clear apportionment of the delay attributed to each party has been established, and clear apportionment is feasible using computerized delay analysis and critical path methods. This is different from the CTN apportionment, because the judge is the one who's going to give apportionment basis based on his view, but here it's relying on the delay analysis. Now, many jurisdictions have applied the apportionment, such as Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, Italy, and civil law jurisdictions such as the UAE. There's also another approach for the concurrency. However, this approach is just choosing one delay event as the dominant cause, because it takes its jurisdiction or its law from the law of insurance, as the courts should just choose one reason as the reason for the delay. There's an English case, Leyland versus Norway. Ship was drooped and taken to be repaired. Storm sunk the ship. And what caused the losses? There is one question: what caused the losses? Was it the action of war, which the client was not insured, or the sea perils, which is mean the storm, where the client was insured? The court held that the dominant cause is the action of war. They chose the action of war, even though they are both they were in parallel, or say concurrent. And this is impossible to apply in the complex concurrency, and especially if they are in equal efficacy. There's also the Devlin approach. This is established by Judge Devlin and Heskel v. Continental Express. If there are two competing delays of equal efficacy, and the one that's causing the delay is the one that's breaching the contract conditions or breaching the contract, then the one that's going to be the reason for the delay is the one that's breaching the contract. Another approach, which also for dealing with concurrency, is the one it's called first in line, which is done by judged by Judge Seymour. It's related to which event is occurring first. The one that's occurring first is going the one to be the reason for the delay, and there will be no concurrency. Now, just to have a quick view on the concurrency under the standard forms of contract. Under FEDEC, usually the FEDEC, there's no mention of concurrency. However, under the FEDEC 1987, clause 20.3 stated that there's a proportional responsibility of the contract and the employer. So it is going to consider apportioning damages in case of concurrency. However, under the Real book, clause 8.5, there was encouraged the parties to agree on certain mechanism for concurrency. If a delay caused by a matter which the employer's responsibility is concurrent with a delay caused by a matter which is the contractor responsibility, the contractor's time to extension of time shall be assessed in accordance with the rules and procedures stated in the particular conditions. And again, you can see here that they are referring to particular conditions. So the contractor and the employer should agree on a concurrency solution. Now in the UAE, Muqawala standard forms, clause 8.4, deprives the contractor from any concurrency requirements or any entitlement for extension of time due to concurrency. However, this clause can be challenged under the civil law using the argument of interpretation rules, good faith, abuse of rights, unjust enrichment, and also apportionment. All right. Now, under Australian standard form of contract, actually there are two revisions: the one done at 1992 and the one done at on 1997. Under 1992, the contractor is deprived from concurrency. He's deprived from any extension of time due to concurrency. However, under the 1997, the standard form contract proposed apportionment. Under English law, the JCT and EC3, they don't have any concurrency clauses. So again, the bespoke provisions should have a mechanism for concurrency. And finally, this was shown in North Midland versus Said and Holmes. The contract was GCT. Special condition has a concurrency clause. It is indicated that any delay caused by a relevant event which is concurrent with another delay for which the contractor is responsible shall not be taken into account. The contractor applied for AOT and the employer denied it. The court held that this clause is crystal clear and contractor shall not have any extension of time. Thank you for listening, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for such beautifully done presentation. It's such a rigid subject, and it's honestly a very debatable subject, concurrency in general. Here at Quantum, we always have different points of view about concurrency, and we say that we always need the full data to form a fair opinion, and we have to get our hands on the full data. Ibrahim, if you can move to the last slide, please, the Q&A questions. We are ready to take some questions. We have, I think, 4 minutes to answer questions. There is a Duna, she says that this is not a question, a thought. She has not seen a contract that defines concurrency or how to measure it. She thinks that one of the things that might be beneficial is to actually put steps in the project contract specifications for delay analysis and concurrency, basically a definition and how to measure it. Vishal, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, is asking, to what extent is it fair to accept clients' insistence or instruction to consultants deducting concurrent delays from EOTs, even when the contract is silent in deducting concurrent delays while granting AOT? I'm not sure if you question, Ibrahim.
All right. So I think consultants should be always fair. They should do their determination on a fair basis. So if a client is stating, as I understand the question, if the client is requesting the consultant to deprive a contractor from their right for extension of time due to concurrency, even though they are entitled for, I think this consultant should put their determination and to make eventually the employer is the one going to have this is going to issue this letter or this decision or whatever.
Thank you, Ibrahim. One last question from Ibrahim. What's the difference between concurrency and parallelism?
All right, so concurrency, as I explained, it's having two concurrency is two delay events that are unrelated and attributable to different parties from the contract. However, parallelism is related to one party, two delays happening at the same time. However, it's related just to one party.
Great question. Osman is just a short question. I think you answered already. But is there any clause in FEDEC 99 about concurrent delays?
Well, as I said, there isn't always a way to deal with concurrency in the contracts. It's based on it's a situation based, and no, there isn't. No, there isn't.
Okay. Great. We only have 1 minute left. Lawrence asked if they can have an Excel template on how to present concurrent delays. I'm not sure if Ibrahim has one, but you can contact them directly on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And you can contact me as well. You can also follow our page of AACI, the Jordan section. Just type it as it is on the screen. I want to thank Ibrahim. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone at the Jordan section. I want to thank everyone at the Qatar, UAE, and Cairo sections. Saad, over and out to you.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. It was very insight. Ali, thank you so much. I will hand it over to my colleague Walid and Dr. Rania from Egypt section, which would be the last presentation for today. Walid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I ask, please ask the Jordan section to stop sharing the screen? Can we stop sharing the screen, please?
I think I can do it from my side. Just 1 second. Okay.
All right. I first want to start by thanking everyone, all of you who attended. I know this is the last presentation, and I know you're probably agonizing right now. We've kept you so long, but thank you so much for attending this very special conference. It's our AAC International's first MENA virtual conference. So we're very, very, very happy to have you, and we're very pleased with the attendance and the questions that have been asked. I'd also like to thank my fellow AAC sections. Each one of them has done a great job, and we're very excited that this first event was well received. Now, for our presentation, the Egypt section, or it's called the Greater Cairo section, we picked really a very challenging topic from my personal experience, and it's going to be presented by a very special person as well, Dr. Rania Said. I believe you've seen her bio in the brochure of the event, but if I would summarize Dr. Rania in just a very few words, I would say, first of all, she has a PhD from the American University in Cairo, but there's one thing that is not mentioned. She is the first female graduate of the construction management program for the PhD at the AUC. So that's a pretty interesting accomplishment. She has also a master's degree in construction law and arbitration from the Robert Gordon University, and she is a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. I'm not sure if you're a fellow, maybe you're a member, yes, but she's on her way to become a fellow. And she is PMP certified. She is, of course, a member of AACE's Greater Cairo section, and I can actually add that she's one of the most active members in the section. And above all that, she's a colleague with me at Hill International, and I attest to her accomplishments and her work. So we have the topic today is the phenomenon, what we call the phenomenon of missing BOQ items. And what that means is if a document, say something, a work item is shown on the drawings clearly from the tender stage, drawings or specifications, but it's not present in the BOQ. So definitely a big debate has arisen on this topic in terms of a remeasured contract. But also there's the issue of lump sum contracts. How is this treated? So this would trigger our first poll question, which I will launch in just a few seconds, and on which I would like to get your experience. Have you experienced a claim situation where an item was present in the drawings and specifications, but not present in the BOQ? Of course, this is whether lump sum or remeasured, it does not matter. So I can see now that the answers, we have 24 out of 93 answering. So far, yes is the predominant answer. We are right now up to 45% participation. We'd like to reach 100% participation. So all of you who did not participate, please would like to see your answers. So far we have 52% participated on half the attendees, and we are at 88% saying yes and 15% saying no. 56% participated. Can we have a little bit more? Okay, so we have 58% participated so far, 60%, and the answer is still 84% saying yes, they have encountered this situation. And so I'm sharing the results. So far, we have basically the majority, 84% saying yes, and 16% saying no, they have not experienced it. Now, if we launch the other, there's another question. Which I'm trying to launch. Okay, so in a lump sum contract, so now let's go to the lump sum contract. Who should bear the consequences of missing BOQ items, do you think, in tender documents? Should it be the employer, or should it be the contractor, or should it be shared? Specifically lump sum contracts. So far we have 34% participating, and the majority is the contractor should bear the consequences of the omissions in the lump sum contract. 50% have participated so far, and the answer is still the contractor should bear the majority. Now we have 55%. I'll just wait just a few seconds. So we are at 59% who participated, and the answer is, as you can see on the screen, the answer is that 60% think the contractor in a lump sum contract should bear the consequences of missing BOQ items, and 25% the employer, 15% shared. So thank you very much for this. I will stop here, and I will give Dr. Rania the floor. The floor is all yours, Dr. Rania.
Thank you, Dr. Walid. Thanks for all attendees. I'd like to tell. I think as Dr. Walid introduced the topic, it may be from the most debatable topic that we face in construction projects. the missing POQ items in lump sum and remitted contracts. Today, the main outline are introduction to the problem.
Dr. Rania, can you play the slides, please, if you don't mind? Perfect.
Introduction to the problem, definition of lump sum contract and pricing of lump sum contract, how we deal with omissions and defects in lump sum contracts, and some case studies. Also, we will go to the remitted contract and how to deal with omissions in remitted contracts, and we will introduce one case study, and finally the conclusion and recommendations. In construction projects, many disputes may arise due to lack of clarity of whether omissions in the contract documents should be considered a variation to the contract price or not. The omissions mainly depends on how well the employer developed the outline design with a clear scope of work at the tender stage. So the dispute arises from the opposing points of view of both the contractor and the employer. So the contractor views the omission as a scope change, which constitutes a variation to the contract price. This is because of the employer's obligation to provide complete design. On the other hand, the employer views these omissions as design development, which is deemed to be included in the contract price, as it is the contractor's duty to seek clarifications during the tender stage. In this regard, we would like to introduce different opinions that address omissions in contract documents in both lump sum and remitted contracts. First, we will introduce lump sum contract, where this type of contract, the contractor submits one lump sum price for the whole of the works and gives breakdown according to the items of the POQ. So the lump sum price or the rates are based on the drawings and specifications prepared by the employer or the designer. The lump sum price includes all the costs that is reasonably inferable from the contract documents as being necessary to produce the intended results. This wording has been defined with different explanations. So we can find two opposing opinions by both Levy and Collier in definition of the pricing of lump sum contract. Levy defines the lump sum price as it includes all costs, the cost for all work accurately presented in the plans and specifications, no more, no less. He mentioned that it is basically a case of what you see is what you get. So based on Levy's opinion, the contractor should base his price on what he explicitly and specifically mentioned in the contract documents. On the other hand, we find that Collier defined the lump sum price with an opposite definition. He mentioned that the lump sum price includes all the costs that is necessary to complete the work for the general purpose for which it is designed and intended. This means that if these works are not included or are not explicitly or specifically mentioned in the contract documents, they are deemed to be included in the lump sum price by implication. Also, when addressing omissions and defects in lump sum contracts, we find different opinions. So we can see that Levy's view that he shifts the responsibility for minor errors and omissions to the contractor. Levy based his opinion on that the owner hired an experienced contractor in the field or in these types of work, so he is truly experienced with these minor defects and he should question and resolve it at no cost to the owner. We find that Sweeney agrees with Levy's opinion, where he judges the responsibility of obvious defects to the contractor, while maintaining the owner liable for hidden defects. The meaning of obvious depends on the circumstances of the project and the relative experience of the contractor. Also, Sweeney addresses liability in respect of the party that had superior knowledge. So he mentioned that failure to provide prompt notification of the defect in due time also garner liability. On the contrary, we find that the US courts have different opinions. So in one case, the US courts ruled that the contractor is not responsible for the defects in the plans and specifications prepared by the owner, even if the contract includes clauses that require the contractor to check the plans or specifications. In another case, also the court rules that the contractor is not required to consume much cost and time to technically investigate the accuracy of the tender drawings. Now going to the practical side, we want to introduce two case studies that address the omission or missing in lump sum contracts.
Dr. Rania, can I please ask you to just raise your voice a little bit?
Okay.
A bit low. Thank you.
These case studies are related to huge current commercial project in Egypt. The contract is ad hoc based on FEDEC 99, and it includes sufficiency of the contract price clause, which mentioned that the contractor shall be deemed to have satisfied himself as to the correctness and sufficiency of the contract price. And the contract price covers all the contractor's obligation under the contract and all things necessary for the execution, completion of the work, and remedying the defects in accordance with the contract. In the first case study, the dispute arises when the contractor submitted requests for information, mentioning that the drawings that specify that the steel structure for skylight system is 1 hour fire rated. However, the aluminum sections and the glazing not specified fire rated. So the contractor asked if the aluminum sections will be fire rated. The consultant replied that all skylight system is 1 hour fire rated. So accordingly, the contractor submitted lots of variation. In the argument between the engineer and the contractor, the engineer based his argument is that as an experienced contractor should have the knowledge that the aluminum section should be fire rated for the integrity of the whole section, for the whole system, and for its end purpose. However, the contractor replied that it's not mandatory for the aluminum to be fire rated, as it is at high height. So it is a missing item in the BAQ and drawings and should be dealt as variation. The engineer argued that the contractor should seek clarification during the tender stage. However, the contractor replied that he followed the life and safety report, which has been provided by the employer during the tender stage, and it didn't address this point. The engineer mentioned that the engineer referred to the sufficiency of the contractor price clause. However, the contractor would disagree with the engineer's argument, and he said that these works are not included in the original scope of work and not necessary for the completion of the work. In this case, the engineer was persuaded that this omission is obvious in the contract documents, and it is essential for the end purpose of the system. So the contractor was under the duty to seek clarification during the tender stage. So the cost of these works are deemed to be included in the contract price. Let us introduce another case study. In this case study, the dispute arises when the contractor mentioned that the general notes drawing specified that the block works with maximum height 8 meters should be fixated with RC slabs. However, another building drawings show that the block works exceeds 18 meters with no upper slab exists for fixation. The contractor asked if fixation is required for the block wall, and the consultant replied that the contractor should submit proposal for fixation system. So the contractor considered this as a variation. In the argument between engineer and contractor, the engineer mentioned that these works are mandatory under the contract, and it is the contractor obligation to do any work necessary for the completion, safety, and the proper operation of the work as per the contract conditions. The contractor replied that the design intent is not obvious in the drawings, so that to know that or recognize that the blockwork should be supported or should be fixated with the RC slabs. In addition, it is not the contractor's scope to include or to propose design works. The engineer also argued that the contractor should seek clarification during the tender stage. However, the contractor replied it's difficult to recognize such omission in drawings during the tender. In addition, the contractor mentioned that this is a design deficiency matter, attributable to the employer, as he is responsible for the design of the permanent works as per the contract conditions. In this case, the engineer was persuaded with the contractor's argument, so that he is not responsible, or that defect is not so obvious in the contract documents to be recognized in the tender stage. In addition, the contractor is not responsible for the design of the permanent works as per the contract conditions, so he should be compensated for these works. Now, going to the remeasured contracts, where the contractor submits unit rate for each item in the POQ, and the rates are fixed. However, the quantities are remeasured based on the defined and agreed method of measurement. The most critical in remeasured contract is the appropriateness of the estimated rates to the items and the relative magnitude, so that the rate should complete all the work required under all the contract documents and all work necessary to complete this item. When dealing with omissions in remeasured contracts, Thomas addressed the omission in remeasured contracts, where he confirms on the liability of the contractor to seek clarification for patent or obvious omission during the tender stage. Thomas mentions that the court also supports or looks unfortunately or looks unfavorably to the party that recognized the default or recognized the ambiguity and didn't ask or didn't seek for clarification during the tender stage. He also mentioned that reasonable knowledge, maybe the other side have a different understanding. So without clarifying or without raising the ambiguity may imply bad faith or unfair deal. Also, Thomas defined the patent as it is a glaring and obvious ambiguity, involves an essential element of the work and necessary to prepare a responsive bid. Now let us discuss it in the practical field. We will introduce one case study in a remeasured contract for Ayub's project in Egypt, which is an expansion of 357 hospital. The contract was FEDEC 99 with particular conditions and the scope of work with the construction of substructure and superstructure works. In this case, the dispute arises when the contractor receives instructions to supply and install re-injectable hose and the injection materials for installation of raft foundation and retaining wall as per the specifications requirements. The contractor mentioned that this is a variation as it is not included in the POQ. The engineer argument is based that the contractor has no merit for such variation as it is required under the specification. However, the contractor replied that it has no item in the bill of quantities and so it has no unit rate. The engineer replied that according to subclause 1.5 of the contract, all documents forming the contract should be mutually taken as mutually explanatory to one another. The contractor replied that any item not specified in the POQ and has no unit rate, so it is not included in the contract price. So the engineer referred to the sufficiency of the contract price clause in the FEDEC contract. However, the contractor disagrees with the engineer's argument. In this case study, the engineer wasn't persuaded with the contractor argument, as these works are explicitly and specifically mentioned in the specs, so the contractor should include it in his contract price, even if it has no item in the bill of quantities. Finally, we would like to recommend that tender documents should stipulate the contractor's duty in the tender stage to seek clarifications for any patent or obvious ambiguity, and also to mention the consequences of failure of the contractor to do so. Also, it is recommended that the employer conduct a pre-bid conference conducted by the designer and attended by all bidders, so that the designers can inject the intent to certain areas of items of work. This can have mutual understanding of the design and can help the contractor to deal with the omissions in the tender documents, which will be reflected in the contract price. Also, Chan and others recommended that the tender documents should identify the difference between design change, which constitute a variation to the contract price, and design development, which deemed to be included in the contract price. Also, they recommended that to develop effective adjudication process to report on the classification of variations submitted by the contract in terms of design change or design development. Now I would like to ask you a question.
One second, Dr. Rania, I'm sharing it now.
Okay. I would like to ask you, do you agree or disagree with the employer's decision on case study 1, which is the skylight system? So I find that at the 32%, 72% agree. So the participate 50% and 73% percentage agree with the engineer's decision. Okay, 73% agree with the engineer's decision, while 27% disagree. Okay, let us go to another question. Do you agree with the Chan recommendation to classify variation in terms of design change and design development? I think most of the participants agree.
Dr. Rania, can you just briefly explain again what Chan was talking about regarding this classification?
In this paper, the authors classified the variations into design development and design change. So they see that design change is items that constitute a variation to the contract price, like a change in scope, a change in function of an area, a change in quality, a change in professional sum, quantities or items, any items that include additional cost due to change with authorities, or this is the design change. However, design development in any other changes in variation in design that doesn't constitute a change that the contractor should include it in his price. It's not an obvious or greater change in the scope or area or function, quality. Any other thing should be considered as design development.
Thank you, Dr. Rania. Actually, looks like if I'm going to launch the results now, the results are that the majority, 85%, we have 53 who participated, agree with Chan, and 15% disagree. I find that actually remarkable because Chan's categorization of design development, I would think that a lot of people would have suspected this could be a change. It is a variation. It's cannot be distinguished from variations. But the majority of the attendees agree that this is distinct from variation. Thank you so much. There's one more slide, right? Or just the references?
No.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rania. We now open the floor for the questions. We have a few questions here. I'll start with the question of an anonymous attendee who asked the question actually shortly after you started. On many occasions, contractors' rights are denied for missing item in BOQ in remeasurable contract based on the following statement in the preamble. So there's a statement in the preamble of the BOQ that says the prices shall be comprehensive and must include for complying in all respects with the instructions to tenders, conditions of contract, specifications and drawings, and for all matters and things necessary for the proper construction, completion, and maintenance of the whole of the works. No claims for additional payment will be allowed for any error or misunderstanding by the contractor of the work involved. So the question is, this is what we call a catch-all statement. So it's saying how to deal with this post-contract. And my understanding from the question, how to deal with this contractor, how can the contractor deal with this post-contract?
I think these provisions are written in contracts, but I think if there is an obvious or that should be introduced in the contract or in the tender documents or in the tender stage, I don't agree that this provision should take the liability or should from the owner. Most owners write this, but I think if there is an obvious defect or a defect that can be the owner is liable, this takes the owner's liability for the design, even if the design is introduced by the owner.
Thank you, Dr. Ronia. We have a actually, just to share my thoughts on this as well. I think when a contractor, if this statement is present in the preamble or is present in anywhere in the tender document, I believe it's a contractor's obligation, if the contractor does not accept this sentence, that the contractor should present clarification or a qualification in the proposal that says that I object or I propose an adjustment to the sentence. Because when a contractor does not object to this, then from an employer's or an engineer's standpoint, evaluating this tender, it's understood that this is full compliance. And this actually can affect an employer's choice of a certain contractor. So this is something that I would advise. We have a question from Shuru Assam, and she asks, what should be done in the designer contract in order to preserve the rights of the owner as a result of design errors? That's a pretty interesting question. What do you think, Dr. Rani?
So yeah, I read what should be done in the design contract in order to preserve the right to the owner as a result of design. Yes, I think this is a good point. The designer contract should always, most of the design contract didn't include this or didn't address this point. The only remedy is the professional indemnity insurance that the designer submit with the contract to guarantee if any errors or mistakes happen. But I think that the employer should include provisions if this happens. Maybe the owner or the designer default is not a very huge default, but this omission may result in that the employer has the budget, changes his budget, which may hinder him from completing the project. So there should be provisions in the contract of the designer contract that address this point, in addition to the professional indemnity insurance.
Thank you, Dr. I just want to add also, this is a very interesting question. There are two complications with this question on this scenario. But the first one, a designer completes the contract by issuing the design. The design goes for tender. The designer's contract is actually finished, and the designer receives the fees. You would bump into these missing BOQ items phenomenon way down the line during construction, where the designer's contract has already been done, he receives his fees. So, so that's one complication. The other complication is that when you quantify, I for example, have witnessed in several of our projects where this missing BOQ item in remeasured contracts has reached a outstanding percentage of the contract price. So, for example, 5% of the contract price in variations, and so actually this would by far exceed the fees of the consultant's contract anyway. So this is something to think about. I think it's a very good question. It's a very loaded question. We have also a point from Mr. Omar Abdel Ader. Thank you, for the very informative session. In my opinion, the missing BOQ item is more debatable in a remeasured contract, since the contractor may argue that the contract price will be paid based on the actual quantities of the items listed in the BOQ. However, I can say that the missing BOQ item, if not separable from the original scope of works, then is deemed included in the contract rates of other items. So what did you think, Dr. Rania, on this opinion?
I agree with Omar. I could say, he said that the missing BOQ item is not separate from the original scope they deemed including the contract rates. Yes, I agree with him. And I think these are, if they are missing in the BOQ, but they are included in another contract documents, so they are deemed to be included in the scope of work, and he is obligated to include it in his contract price. In addition, if there is any, I think clause 1.5 in the FEDEC also covered this point, as we mentioned that all the contract documents should be mutually explanatory to each other. And I think other contracts also introduce the provisions of any items that is included in one contract document and not included in the other is deemed to be included in other contract documents. So I agree with Omar's thought.
So thank you so much, Dr. Rania, for this wonderful presentation. I think we, Walid, he is back. Okay.
Yeah.
Walid, you back? I just was about to hijacking your moderating. Okay. I think it's time now to wrap up and thank Dr. Rania and Walid. And please, Walid, the floor is yours to say the few words. Can we ask our colleagues to join us as well before after Walid finishing his
yes, I just want to thank this very interesting presentation, and there's a lot of questions that we did not answer, as with our in the Jordan section and other sections. Please contact us through LinkedIn, and we would be more than happy to continue this discussion. I want to thank everyone, every single person who attended. Really, we really appreciate your attendance and value your participation. All our fellow sections, I think you all did a great job. Thank you all, and floor is back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Walid, so much. I noticed also that our friend Hussein Al-Omani is here. Hussein is one of the members of the ACE International board, and we are thanking him that he has taken the time as well to attend. I'd like to thank everyone. Can I ask my colleagues if they are still available to join us on a video so we can close up the session? Okay, so it seemed that it will end up by us. I would like to thank all the sections, Qatar section, UAE section, Jordan section, Egypt section, or Greater Cairo section. I'd like to thank Haya so much for organizing this and supporting us all the way to the end. It was a wonderful presentations, different topics, outstanding speakers. The moderators as well has done a great effort to make this happen. It was done very quickly by the teams, and it was really one of the first online conferences we had. Hopefully we will do another ones in the future. There is a plan these days to conduct a physical one, hopefully next year. Haya is working on this one and the team, and hopefully it will be announced
very soon, inshallah.
Yes, yes.
I was just going to say the same, that I am very thankful to all your efforts to do this and to arrange for this our first virtual conference, and very soon we will announce our first physical and face-to-face conference. Hopefully we will do it in Jordan, maybe early next year. Hopefully the pandemic situation will not go any worse than more than this, and that we can travel and meet very easily and very effectively. Thank you all for your efforts, and thank you for your time. Thank you for all our attendees, and we are open to any help, any question for the local sections, for the ACE, for any technical inquiry. We are all available for any help. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. The last thing we would like to say before we go, that all the presentations will be sent to the attendees. Certificates will be issued under the Region 7 and the Qatar, and the sections, all of the sections together with the CBDs. You can use it, and please feel free to contact the speakers and the moderators for any other questions which we have not answered. I'm sorry that the time was limited, and hopefully we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you so much for Walid specifically. He was the dynamo of this whole thing, and he was the one who was pushing us to organize it, and here we are. Thanks for the other sections as well for attending these ones and be able to help in the first conference. Thank you so much, and have
thank
a
you
good,
all. Great team effort. So thank you all.
Thanks so much, Walid, Haya, Sari, Rania, Ibrahim, and gang, and all the sections. See you later. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.